G'day guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Wildkard. Thank you for watching the Wildkard Rugby Show. Like, comment and subscribe. And you are here today because it's time to read some rugby news. Yes, the ongoing civil war in New Zealand between the Players Association and the provincial unions has reached another boiling point this week as the Players Association threatens to break away and form a new governing body away from the provincial unions. Now, there's a bit of a story as to how we reached this point, and it goes all the way back to the Silver Lake deal in 2022. So let's have a look at what happened in 2022. So in 2022, New Zealand Rugby engaged a deal with Silver Lake, an investment firm from the United States, to sell off essentially 5.7 to 8.5% of the All Blacks, essentially, to this investment firm at a valuation of about $2 billion, which is a very high valuation. When this deal was proposed, it needed the approval for the provincial unions to go through. And the provincial unions unanimously, almost immediately approved this deal. And in fact, I think the provincial unions were the ones that really forced New Zealand Rugby to take the deal, because the New Zealand Rugby, the chair, the board of members, is under threat by the provincial unions, because the provincial unions can vote them out of their place if they're not happy. So the provincial unions essentially kind of like forced the New Zealand Rugby to take the deal, despite there were other options to finance a New Zealand Rugby via loans, essentially like getting, borrow money essentially, instead of going to the option to sell the brand, right? So a lot of the people, including the Players Association, was a big part of it that's against this deal. The Players Union literally came out, you probably remember this, a couple of years ago, that said, we're against the deal. We think that the tradition, the heritage of the jersey is not up for sale. But eventually this was pushed through. The Players Union, not sure exactly what was spoken behind the doors, eventually did agree to take the deal. And then, the provincial unions essentially got the handout immediately after this deal was done, and everybody's happy. And that was the end of that little conflict 2 years ago. And now, the most recent conflict is that last year, at the end of last year, the New Zealand Rugby spent a lot of money for consulting a firm to re-examine the current governance of New Zealand Rugby. And they basically came out and said that New Zealand Rugby, the way it's operating right now, it's not fit for purpose for the modern era. So they'll propose some sweeping changes to the current way that New Zealand Rugby is operating. And amongst some of this, the recommendation and some of these key issues that was raised was the fact that the provincial unions are spending too much money. Yeah, and a lot of money is spent on high performance instead of actual grassroots. So they think that money is not well spent by the provincial unions. And obviously, the proposal, the report came in, and there was a proposal to change some of these things. And the provincial unions look at this and say, no, we're not happy with some of the proposed changes. And they issued what's so-called a proposal 2, and a little bit of a change in the original proposal from proposal 1 that the current New Zealand Rugby Player Association is strongly against. And this is proposal 2, so-called proposal 2, is the reason that New Zealand Rugby Players Association wants to break away, threatens to break away. They basically said that, hey, look, New Zealand Rugby owns the All Blacks brand. The players, like us, the Players Association, plays for the brand. We can break away without you. We can start this whole New All Blacks venture without the provincial unions at all, if the proposal 2 is to be accepted. And you might be wondering what's exactly in proposal 2 that is so devastating. Once again, it's a struggle for power. Remember how in 2022 the one of the reasons maybe speculated that the All Blacks had to take a deal with Silver Lake to sell off the brand is because the provincial unions really wanted this deal done, and the provincial unions had the ability to vote the board members out of New Zealand Rugby. And if so basically people didn't want that to happen, and then that was kind of like made one of the pressure points that the provincial unions had to push stuff through for them in their favor. So so basically in proposal 2, the amended, or the adjustments to the original proposal in the sweeping changes that they want to see is the fact that the provincial union wants to have one of the 3 members in New Zealand board at any given time having to spend time in the provincial union rugby board. So they want one of their own people to be in the board as a guarantee at New Zealand Rugby. Yeah, like I said, they have a lot of power, and a lot of this is about wrestling away that power from them, so they can't just come out and say, hey, New Zealand Rugby, we need money. Why don't you sell off another 5% of All Blacks and hand us $1 million again? That is not a good business model, isn't it? So they wanted to continue to strangle for that power, and and the Players Association is not happy. You know, they already wasn't happy about selling the All Blacks in 2022, and now they basically come out and say, hey, we're going to just make a new entity. You know, we're going to put in our own system. We have the players. New Zealand Rugby owns the All Blacks brand. We're going to carry on without you. So yeah, some pretty serious stuff came out of that, but it will be real interesting to see what happens and how this is going to be resolved. Anyway, moving along. So Rob Penny was caught on the greatest coach in history of Super Rugby was caught on a hot mic today, calling a reporter, let's just say Tom Curry. He called him a Tom Curry, whilst having the live mic on himself. So let's have a quick look at this. So he was faced with some tough questions.
Do you expect to still be here in this role next year?
Absolutely.
Would you consider stepping aside?
No.
What have they said to you?
Yeah.
Oh, they're personal conversations which I'm not prepared.
So a bit of tough questions, and still have the mic on him.
Question.
What's really funny is he called this guy a Tom Curry with a live mic still on him. The guy who's taking the mic off him, right? He was like, who is this guy? Who is this Tom Curry? Being a disgrace, right? Asking me these questions. The guy who was taking the microphone off him was like, you still got the mic on you? I'll talk to you later. And he's just, Rob Penny's like, no, tell me now. Talk to me now. Talk to me now. No, talk to me now. I want to know who this guy is, without realizing he's got a hot mic on him. And his assistant is literally like winking at him like, I'll talk to you later, mate. Don't speak now. We're still got a mic on you. Like, it's so stupid. It's so stupid, oh man. So yeah, so there was a lot of pressure on him. The worst Crusaders coach ever. And he's going to get he actually has an extension on his contract to 2025. So he'll be staying for next season. And New Zealand Rugby has decided to not fire him after a meeting. So yeah, and he came out and apologized, but boy, this was really, really bad. And speaking of really bad, the Crusaders got the Blues coming up this weekend, and this is going to be a brutal match. This is at home in Christchurch. The Blues has put up a pretty strong team, so the Crusaders really need to win this one to have any hope of staying in the hunt for the top 8. They are just out of the reach from the top 8 at 10th. So if we win this one, they'll be pretty close to top 8, and then if we win next week, which is against Moana Pacifica, there is a chance that they still make it to the finals. Yes, so it is going to be tight, but it really hinges on this game against the Blues. And immediately just looking at some of the decisions that greatest Crusaders coach in history of Super Rugby has decided is that he has put Mighty Willemse at tight head prop. I think I've heard somewhere that he can play both sides, but he's specialized to play a loose head. So instead of having Owen Franks at number 18, a actual tight head prop who has a world of experience in a tough match like this, he decided to put Mighty Willemse out of position on the bench in a tight head position against possibly the best scrum in Super Rugby right now. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Someone can tell me if that's a good idea or not, because as far as I know, Mighty Willemse is like mostly loose head prop, right? At least he plays loose head in the test matches, and I think he has played tight head before, but yeah, I don't know how this is going to go. And also another change is at the 10 position. The 10 has been a big question mark for the Crusaders for quite a long time now. Again, Taha Kamara, another 10 coming in off the bench. Reihana is dropped again, so I don't know. He changes his mind on who wants to be the fly half every week. Levi Amura backs from the injury. Ethan Black had a back from a bit of an injury as well. So massive returns for them. But yeah, this is going to be tough. This is going to be against the top runners. Absolute brutal forward pack. Tuanga Fasi, Patrick Tuipulotu, Akira Ioane, Hoskins Sotutu. Yeah, so Tuanga Fasi is probably the best loose prop in Super Rugby right now, in terms of scrummaging at least. And Tamani Williams is going to have to come on and play against Tuanga Fasi for at least maybe 10-15 minutes before Tuanga Fasi goes. So may even play the full game because Tuanga Fasi has played 80 minutes before. So this is going to be a big test for Tamani Williams in that regards. So I don't know how that's going to go for the Crusaders. Steven Perifetta is back from his injuries, but bad news is Zhang Sullivan is out. There is some interesting talk. Also Riku Ioane is back as well. But there is some interesting talk that Beauden Barrett could come back into the Blues team to an injury. So he's already back in Auckland training with the Blues, and the law states that he can't play for the Blues in the finals if he hasn't played in Super Rugby, before the 1st of April, which he hasn't done so. But he is permitted to come back if there is a shortage to injury. So if Steven Perifetta or maybe Harry Plummer gets an injury, then there is a chance we'll see Beauden Barrett back on the field for the Blues in the finals, which will be a massive, massive return for the Blues. Speaking of the big man, Tuanga Fasi resigned a 2-year deal with New Zealand Rugby. He is absolutely huge right now for the New Zealanders. Now, there has been some talk about, obviously, the playoffs. There's a big issue right now in Super Rugby that the top 4 teams has already secured a home game whilst there's still 2 rounds left. So the gap between the top 4 and the bottom 8 is way too big for this to be a competitive environment. So there are some proposals about, some changes. Tim Horan has proposed that they cut down the top 8 to just top 6 and give this is something I was actually thinking about the other day, to give the top 2 teams a week off, so they only have to play semi-finals and finals. They don't have to play in the quarterfinals at all to give a team a playoff. He sees that as an advantage. Also, obviously, reducing the team from 8 to 6 makes it more competitive in that regard. For me, I think it's an issue with the bonus point system. Currently in Super Rugby, I talked about this on my Instagram. You want to go follow that. For me, is that the top team, the bonus point system in Super Rugby is a little bit different from Six Nations. You have to beat the other team by more than 3 tries, not points, tries, to get the bonus point. It encourages teams from scoring tries, which is good. But the problem comes down to it is that if 2 teams are evenly matched, this bonus point becomes irrelevant because teams just gonna kick penalty goals, do whatever they can to win the game, right? But so a lot of times, the majority of the times, the bonus point is just given to a top team, blowing out a bottom team in a mismatch, essentially. So the bonus points just given out to top teams for mismatches, essentially. It's not really something that teams strive to achieve in a close match. You basically, it's irrelevant because if 2 teams are, if the Blues are playing the Hurricanes, it's impossible for either team to blow the other team out by 3 tries, more than 3 tries. So they just don't bother, right? So it's a weird setup where the top team just keeps getting more and more points as they blow out the bottom teams 5 points at a time. Whereas everybody else, because they're more evenly matched, they can't achieve that 3 try gap. So they just end up, only getting 4 points. Even if they're winning every week, they're still falling further and further and further behind because of the extra bonus point that's given to the top team. So that's why the gap is so big between the top teams and the bottom teams, because of that bonus point system. And I think that's something that New Zealand Rugby, the Super Rugby needs to look at. And I think that the losing bonus point, which is if you lose less within 7 points, already achieves the same goal as the winning bonus point, which is to encourage the losing team to play harder to try to catch up, and it encourages the winning team to deny the bonus point. So it already encourages, a lot of try scoring, a lot of competition, incentivizes the competition, but the extra additional winning bonus point for the blowouts is just unnecessary, in my opinion, and it's kind of skewed the results towards the top teams, like you see here in Super Rugby. Anyway, that's something I talk about. Moving on to South Africa now. So the Springboks has suffered a couple of injuries going into the July series. Number 1 is the greatest Springbok in the history of Springboks, Damien Willemse, is going to go through a finger surgery. Come on, Damien. You got to learn from your dad, Damien. You got to learn from your dad, the man himself, Rasi Erasmus with the crooked finger, right? You don't need surgery. You're just going to live with it. You'll live with that, Damien, all right? Learn from your dad. Learn from your dad, and it'll make you a better player, okay? Damien, just cut that out. Number 2, another big one. This guy I've been waiting for a return for a long time now is Lukamu Arm. He's got a shoulder and rib injury, and he'll be out for a bit as well. So maybe he'll be out for the November Test series as well, based on the report. Another guy that's out of the big clash between South Africa and Ireland is Hugo Keenan. He wants to go play for a gold medal. Just so dumb. Olympics so dumb. We're gonna give you a gold medal. It's so cheesy. Anyway, I don't watch the Olympics. Don't expect any sevens review from the Olympics because I will not be watching a single minute of the Olympics. And sorry, let's moving on. So he will be out of the picture for a while, and that is just that. Next up, Jasper Wiese is another guy who will be missing out on the on the Springbok games against Ireland as well. Depends on his suspension period. He got a red card on his final match for Leinster, and this one could be 2 or 3 weeks. So he could be missing out all 3 weeks in November, July Test series that's coming up against Ireland as well. So Wiese is a big loss in number 8 spot for them. Big return back to Super Rugby. Caleb Muntz returns to the Fijian and Drua this week in a pretty much must-win match against the Highlanders. And if the Druas lose this one, and if the Crusaders beat the Blues, the Crusaders might sneak ahead to the final in the 8th spot. Waratahs head coach Darren Coleman has been sacked, and there is a couple of people being floated around as his replacement. I mean, his results has been pretty poor considering how I guess it's a pretty stacked Wallabies team as well. A lot of players wanting out of the system. It's not his fault this season. The team has been mismanaged for a number of years now. Bringing back, old players from overseas to fill into core positions for I don't know why, just for some of the fantasies. I don't know why, and that's just hasn't been giving any consistency to the team. So some replacements, potentially Jason Gilmore from the Australia A, Saimu Rai Valu, the Fijians head coach from the Rugby World Cup. He was interim coach, was taken over last minute for the Fijians, has done a great job, might take over for the Waratahs. And then Nathan Gray, who is currently under 20 coach for the Wallabies, for the under 20 Wallabies, might take over as well. And probably another issue was obviously the injuries as well. A prop has been called in from Brisbane Club Rugby to filling this weekend. And let's keep this moving. So yeah, another big game this weekend is Hurricanes versus the Chiefs. Massive game this weekend. And this is going to be a game that really heavily battles for the All Blacks backline jerseys. We've got Ruben Love in top form, Geordie Barrett, Billy Proctor potentially in the picture, so Kenny Holo. And Brett Cameron has been doing quite well as well. TJ Perinara. And then the Chiefs, obviously the big name, Damien McKenzie, Anton Leonard-Brown, Narua as well, in trying to put his hat in the picture. And Quinn Tupaya is back in the fold as well, from his long injury. So this will be a very, very, very interesting game for that All Blacks jersey backline selection. Moving on, Brumby has signed Sapsford till 2026. So that's Ollie Saxford is staying at Brumbies. He's a New Zealand-born guy. And so moving on to the weekend, Reds versus the Fijian and Drua. 2 yellow cards to Suliasi Vinavalu for tripping. And he has resulted in a 2-week ban. And it was reduced down to 1 week for pleading guilty. And it was just really bizarre. He tripped someone and then got sent off. And then when he came back on later on in the game, did the exact same thing. Exact same move. Stuck his foot out for a trip as he's getting beaten, right? So it wasn't a good look. So yeah, we already talked about this. Bowden Barrett potentially can play for the Blues if to an injury. Glenn Jackson has been appointed as the Fijian Drua head coach, as the current head coach Mick Byrne is going to become the head coach of the Fijian national team. And Narua has re-signed to the Chiefs for 2026, which is a massive signing for them. And so finally there was a bit of an issue with the Brumbies has beaten the Crusaders first time in 15 years or something. And this was a controversial finish. It was a penalty try given after the ball hit the goalpost from a non-CEO penalty attempt, and the Ben O'Keefe giving it a penalty try. There's a lot of people disagreeing with the penalty try. I do agree that this penalty try was probably a little bit too far-fetched with the assumptions that Goddard, the Brumbies player, was going to be able to score that in the position in the body position that it was in. In my opinion, he wasn't in a position to catch the ball properly. But I've seen a lot worse because, the assumptions for a penalty try is pretty like outrageous. And I think credit needs to be given to Mr. Ben O'Keefe here for being consistent with the absurd requirements of World Rugby. So at least he's been a good referee and following the rules that's been told by him. But the penalty try was probably a little bit too much. But anyway, moving on. So Ireland Rugby Union has, has done a little bit of a model change for themselves as well. And the big change out of this model is that the Irish Rugby Football Union has announced that the what do they call it? The provinces, the provincial unions, will pay up to 30% of the cost of a test player playing for Ireland during their time playing for Ireland. So currently, the Irish Rugby Union, Football Union, pays for all the players that comes in to play for them. So I'm guessing on a retainer, right? So you pay them on a weekly basis. Here in Australia, it's like $7,500 per week. So I think something that's out with the same. So instead of just the unions pays for all of that, now that the provincial unions, the local clubs, the provincial clubs will have to pay 30% of that retainer that Ireland Rugby Union will pay. And this is being agreed upon by the provincial union as well. And as also part of the package, the Ireland Rugby Football Union will be giving each club 40 million euros. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be like, I'm not 100% sure how like what's the funding before. So I'm guessing they've given them more funding. As a result, they want them to put back, a 30% of the cost for a test player to the union. So it's kind of like, we'll give you money if you don't have a lot of don't have a lot of players that's coming through to play in the national team, then you get that money to keep and to develop more players. But if you do have people coming through, you're going to give some money back to us to support the players playing in the national team. So I think that's how the model works. But it's interesting how that's set up. Finally, Ruben O'Neill has been cited for a ban, 3 weeks for a shot. This one, bam, shot on Musili. But I think 3 weeks is a really, really, really soft ban for a punch or like a striking. So again, inconsistencies in these sort of things in Super Rugby, as we've all expected. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys tomorrow for Super Rugby review and this weekend as well. And check out the merch store. Thanks to everyone who supports me financially. Really appreciate that, keeping things rolling here. And have a good one, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, yada, yada, yada. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the Super Rugby reviews. Cheers.